So one of my common problems with this one was my arms are too far forward. Right?
Yeah.
So most guys and girls, that's their problem. So how do you fix that?
Yeah. So let me coach you through that, just for people that's a hard position for a lot of people to get into. So start here, Matt. First of all, you went a little too wide in your toes, so take it in a little bit for me. Okay. So yeah, right there. That's great. Now let's focus on driving the knees out. Okay. And you're gonna put your one hand in your other hand like that.
Like this?
Yeah. And then just drive your knees out with your elbows. Okay.
Drive the knees?
Yeah. So push your elbows out.
Like this?
Push your knees out with your elbows. There you go. Good. How's that feel?
Good.
Okay. Good. Now come up a little bit because we have just a little bit of it. There you go. So that's your neutral position. Continue to drive out with your elbows.
Like this?
Yes. Just like that. Yeah. Yeah. Just like that. Lift the chest a little bit.
Yep.
Good. Drive out. Now put your hands behind your head. Drive the elbows back. Good. There's your position. Nice job. And if you feel really tight through the shoulder complex, you can stay here.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
So it's funny because in doing that, here's what I felt. I fell back to my heels.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was tough for me to stay in that spot. So is that because of my lats are tight, or?
Yeah. I think the key thing for you was really the restriction that you have around the shoulder complex.
Okay.
So for a lot of people, they will do this because it's going to open some of the diaphragmatic rib cage type fascia that's involved there, right? And that ultimately comes down and connects to the hip. So for people that are maybe overhead athletes or doing any kind of rotation, like that could be really valuable. For somebody that has like a really limited range of motion in the shoulder, a lot of times you just don't have that range. So you're going to work so hard to get your hands in that position, and when you normally just don't have the range of the shoulder. So for you, that was trying to lean back to get into that position, right? So I would just adjust your upper body position, and that's where this one felt a little bit more comfortable for you.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, so
that's a great one.
Yeah, it's really simple. Okay. And so let's try that one more time and try it without your arms over the head. Just go hand in hand, drive the knees out. Use the elbows to kind of push the knees away. Yeah, just hold it. How's that feel?
Way better now.
Okay, awesome.
I actually feel the stretch now in my thoracic spine.
Yeah, you're gonna get some activation to get a really good position. And now play with this a little bit. Really push that out, so you get a lot of groin stretch right there.
Oh, my glutes work a little bit.
Yeah. Now just pulse go up halfway, and then back down. Drive out, and up a little bit. Go back down, and then relax. Good. So when we're going back to any of the barbell lifts, like squat, it's a great way to make sure that at the bottom you're going to be turned on. For the most people, they're actually pretty solid through the middle of the lift. Mm-hmm. It's at the two ends of that lift range of motion that they really struggle, or a muscle turns off or it's late firing. So I'm a big believer in working in the extension and then the full flexion aspect of the muscle, try to potentiate it in those positions.
That was terrific.
Cool.
Great knowledge there, Andy.
All right, so let's get into some hamstring stuff.
Let's do it.
So there's a couple of different ways to do hamstring exercise. I actually find a lot of people are much tighter at the hip and the lateral side of the hip than they are in the hamstring actually. But for those that need a lot of hamstring work, really the key thing is people that are tight at the hip, typically they're more flexible at the hamstring. And so they have this kind of a posture. People that are typically tight in the hamstrings, they can fall into that sway back category where this is their posture, right? We do see a fair amount of like lifters in these positions, usually like really good deadlifters. They're really solid in this type of position. And what we want to do is we want to try to get their spine going the opposite way. Okay. So we're stretching the anterior side of the hip, we're going posterior pelvic tilt. Now we're stretching the back side of the hip, and so we're going anterior pelvic tilt. So the way we would do that is you're going to go into a hamstring stretch. You're just going to turn your toes in a little bit, okay? You're going to take your hands and weave them this way.
Yeah.
Stick your butt way back. And and go right in your heels and just bend. Drive your head back at the same time. Yeah, you got it. Just keep the toes in. Yeah, you got it. Try to straighten the legs as much as you can. All the pressure on the heels. Yeah, just like that. And you're trying to maintain this neutral spine. So for a lot of people, Matt, the mistake that really comes up with this one is when they stretch, they fold through the middle of their spine. Yep. So they're folding through their T-spine that way. So we're trying to counterbalance that by sitting back this way. Okay, and all the pressure's in the heels, so you should be able to lift up on your toes a little bit to sit back. And just basically that rotation in is just making sure that we work the lateral side just a little bit more than the medial side. I think you want to have a little bit of a natural curve in your spine, especially in this exercise, right? We're trying to get away from it when we're working on hip extension. Right. When we're working on hip flexion normally pulls you into a rounded position.
Right.
So we're trying to use those erectors to maintain a neutral spine in that case. So that's actually a good thing.
Perfect. And the
Yep.
head, just keep it aligned with the body, like
Yeah.
so, right? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You can look up, you know, if you like to be super technical, you could go into a chin tuck and set your eyes in a certain type of position. But I think this is a type of stretch that's a lot more static. If you want to do more of an activation type of a stretch, where there's a little bit more of a muscle activation component, you can go into a single leg version of the exercise. So you can dip this way, okay, touch the ground, and then try to straighten. Okay, so you can do like a little muscle contraction here,
Okay.
and then come back down and push from the heel. So that's allowing you to get a little more of that kind of mid-belly hamstring.
That's how it's done, Andy.
Yeah, so touch the ground, bend the knee to get down there. Yeah, right there. Lift that back leg as high as you can.
Like this?
Yeah, and then just straighten, and then relax, and straighten, and relax, and straighten, and relax. Yeah, there you go. There you go, nice.
This is like muscle activation and getting the hamstring stretched out too at the same time.
Yeah, big time, big time. So if we take that, if you want to start working the lateral part of the hamstring, one way we can do that, Matt, is against the ground, again, single leg position.
Yep.
Go hip against the wall. You're just going to drop this way, and then turn.
Drop that way and turn.
Yeah. I learned this one from a couple of friends of mine, Steve Sierra and Ann Tierney, who have a program called Kihara. It's a specialized like resistance stretching technique. Okay. Really cool concept. So you go hip against the
Do I
wall.
go this way?
Yeah, you're going to go hip against the wall. You're going to drop your right hand on the ground.
Right to the ground?
Yeah. This stays high.
This one's high?
Yep. And then you're going to open this way.
Okay.
There you go. So we're working the lateral part of this hamstring. So try to extend this knee. Yeah, there you go. Nice. And you're just going to hold in that position. Or what you can do is like a little mini squat. So bring the hand down.
Yeah.
Touch. And then lift. Lift and extend. And then back down. There you go. Lift and extend. And back down. Good. And relax. Good. Let's try the other side. Keep you balanced so we can hit that workout later.
Great.
Yep.
This way, right?
Yep.
Working the brain actually just lateral movements happen.
Yeah. So extend and lift. And then back down, touch. Extend, lift. And back down, touch. Extend, lift. There we see that theme on that right side. A little tighter on that right side. And relax. Okay, awesome. Now if you're somebody that doesn't have great flexibility from there, just put a little block. Right? So you can actually just put a block right there for a lot of people if that's their spot. Right?
Okay.
But that just gives you a little bit of extra stability. So now what we can do is we can move into some of the more active ways of stretching.
Yep.
So I would start static, move into more of the active stuff and the movement-based stuff. That's
Okay.
typically what I would do, especially if we have improving range of motion as part of the theme of that training phase.
Okay.
If it's not, if we have a guy who's maybe like super loosey-goosey that doesn't necessarily have to do a lot of range of motion work, or we want more stability, probably skip that part of it, to be honest, and I'd get the range of motion through movement, a little more activation. But we'll start with a little bit more. So now we're just going to do a step out. So this is working the hips. We're going to step out and rotate. So we get a little bit of lumbar and T-spine rotation here. We kind of get a little locking of the lumbar spine for this position, and then we come, grab, and extend. And
So
so
that's dynamic, right?
yes,
Okay.
you got it. So this is going to be a little bit more dynamic. So you're going to step out,
Here?
yeah, and then rotate. Yeah, you got it. And then other side. Good. So we're getting a little rotation of the hip. We want to engage the glute in the back, create that hip stability that we've been working on.
The Braxton was when you were gone, Andy.
Relax. Yeah, nice. It looks good. It looks a little better. Then the next one, we go right into the same progression from here, and we're going to actually come through and drop, and then reset, drop, reset, drop, reset, drop, and reset.
Okay. Drop and reset.
Yep.
Here?
Yep. Yeah, you got it. You got it. Drop. There you go. Good. Good. Try not to get too wide. Right underneath the opposite shoulder. There. That's better. Good.
Feels good. Yeah.
That's a little better. Yeah, you don't want the stretch to come through the spine too much. You want to stay relatively neutral in your pelvis. There you go. Nice. Okay, awesome. And there's another one. This is lateral hamstring. This is a little bit more of an advanced one. So this is one that I've been using for years. So you basically just extend, lift, go to the other side, lift, go to
the other side.
What is that doing for the other side? Lift. And then basically what you're doing with this is you're creating hip mobility. Okay? Internal rotation, external rotation. So when I come from here, internal rotation, external rotation, lift, extend, this is lateral hamstring through here. Okay? So it's a little more advanced, but if you want to try that side, so this is your typical kind of hurdler sit, 90-90 position. All you're really going to do is go up on that back toe, straighten the back leg, and then extend that first leg.
This?
Yes, right there.
Down?
So go up and hold that for me.
To here?
Feel this lateral hamstring? Okay. Now you want to just try to straighten this leg and rotate your body towards the ground.
So
yes,
here?
right there. You got it.
And then I
you got it.
go down and
rotate.
rotate?
Create the position on the other side.
Here?
No, bring the right leg back. Yes, right there. Good, you got it. Extend. And switch.
This?
Yeah, back over to the other side. Yeah.
Boom.
Bend here.
Bend here?
Yeah. And then go ahead. Yeah, you got it. And then switch to the other side. Yeah, you got it. And relax, good. And so the whole thing is the initial stretch, lateral hamstring stretch, you're creating basically like an L. It's right here. So this is a really tough stretch. It's very good for the lateral hamstring. It's really good hip decompressive type of a stretch actually. And what I did is I just created a little more active. So you start here and you create this and then you're just gonna flip, right? And then create it on the other side. And so you're kind of getting this constant like active stretch, active range of motion through the hips. So it'd be really good. Anybody who's involved in grappling, anybody with a lot of hip motion could be really valuable. So up on the back toe, yeah, and now drop and switch. Lift, there you go. Yes, good, you got it. Switch. Yeah, you got it.
Just have to.
Yeah, perfect. Once you recognize that position, it's just a matter of like football.
Okay.
So now we're going to go into a series on the back. This is basically just a little Pilates series. And essentially we're going to start from here. So now we're going to incorporate some abdominal activation. When you've got your legs in your air and you're going to do a type of position from here, you want to make sure that the activation is pretty symmetrical through the spine. So I don't want too much flexion from here. And that's pretty common for people that are weak through their lower abs relative to their body weight. You're going to see that, right, type of motion. What we want is this, right? So you want to try to lift, draw in, lift this way. So we're going to start with hamstring stretch. You're going to reach for the ankles, let the head back, stay back, let the chin stay tucked. So I'm getting abdominal activation, and I'm getting a little hamstring stretch at the same time. So lift, yep. You got your legs in the air, get all the way up actually if you can.
Yep.
Yeah, right there. Control the head position. So it's going to be off the ground, a little bit, yeah, a little chin tuck. There you go. Good. Now you're just going to reach for the one leg and pull. Let the other one go down and then switch for me. Yes, good, awesome. Awesome. And then once you make contact with the leg, now you want to try to use the quad to extend the leg. Yes, there you go. Good. Other side. Yes, good. Yeah, nice. Very good. Okay, you got it. Awesome. Okay, really nice. So now we're getting into the other side. Same concept, lateral side of the hip. Boom.
Boom. Lateral.
Yep, this is lateral side of the hip.
Okay. Lateral this. It's here.
Yeah, cross. Good. Now, remember we talked about this knee?
Yep.
Comes across the body. This hand here, this hand comes over top. So we're going there, and you're gonna pull towards that side. Yes. You feel difference there versus here?
Way different.
This is IT band. This is gonna be high lateral side of the glute. Good, switch sides. Yes, you got it. Yep, perfect. For some people, you can start by just pulling under the chin. Yeah, nice. Good.
Yeah, I feel that way different.
Okay, and the last one from this series, lateral hamstring. Catch the outside of the foot and extend. Okay, catch, extend, catch, and extend.
Huh. All right, so catch.
Catch outside, extend.
Extend.
Yep, you got it.
Catch.
Extend.
Extend.
Yep, catch. Extend. Yep.
Catch.
And relax. Okay, awesome. So now we just did 5 exercises. Okay. So step up, step out, and so you can hit these and keep your heart rate up. So like we were talking about, once you're done your static exercises, if you have time and you want to go do those static drills, active static stretching, and you want to breathe and you want to relax and you have a little meditative component, it's phenomenal. If you want to work through it, you know, you can hit these, you know, in sequence, right? And you can come to the front, right? And then you can get right into, you know, these drills.
Oh yeah. Speed.
And then you can start moving it this way. And you know, probably some of the, depending on how much rotation you want with your T-spine, you can start working T-spine activation, bird dog type motions. You know, so it really depends on what you want to try to get after, but these are more active drills that you can do. The next series, or the last series we'll do for the warm-up is the movement-based stretching. Yes?
What's optimal time for a warm-up like that? Like what's the longest and shortest?
So I'd say the shorter it is, the less time you have, the more you want to try to combine all the components in one. So it's generally going to be more movement-based, more dynamic. So normally I would start with an athlete 15 to 20 minutes on a bike or an elliptical. They're doing aerobic work.
Okay.
They're trying to stimulate a little bit of blood flow, create a little bit of synovial fluid in the joints.
Yeah.
Then they're going to do some static stretching, some breathing, you know, maybe another 10 minutes. So it's 30 minutes in and they haven't even really moved yet, right? Then you're going to create a little bit of movement. That's another 15 minutes. Okay. So probably 45 minutes into some, you know, drills where you've created some movement. You're sweating, you've burned some calories, you've got your hormones going, and then at that point, you know, you're going to start doing some strength-based work or some explosive-based work, and that's maybe another 30 minutes. So an hour and 15, or maybe an hour and a half if it's 45 minutes of the actual block of the workout, but a significant portion of it is range of motion. Now, the reason why I do that is because most of the athletes I'm working on are looking to improve posture, looking to improve muscle range of motion, and they're looking to improve strength at end range. So a lot of times just that whole muscle rebalancing component, if you want to have that kind of a body, you're going to need to build that in. And I like building it into their warm-up every day.
Would you suggest for like, let's take a power lifter, I'm almost like a strength performance athlete, not so much a hockey player.
Yeah,
Let's kind of go to a bodybuilder, super leaguer, CrossFitter kind of athlete.
Yeah.
What's optimal for something like that, Andy, do you think?
To whatever extent your sport requires movement in multiple planes of motion.
Okay.
That's really what the warm-up is about. So I would honestly say anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes if you're somebody who's going to be a super leaguer, CrossFitter, something like that. If you're just a pure power lifter, all you really need to be able to do is move well within those 3 lifts. That's it, right?
Yeah.
And most of the time, like you'll watch a power lifter warm up, they jump under a bench, jump under a squat bar, it's there right away. Like most of the time, they're so adapted to that position, they need to do very little warm-up. So warm-up for them is, you know, a couple of reps with the bar, a couple of reps, it's just a little progression of the lift itself, right? Same thing with an Olympic lifter. So, you know, the rest of the type of work is, you know, you really not that necessary if you're just gonna be standing still when you're lifting. To whatever extent you have to move more dynamically, and that's kind of the way the industry's going, right? A lot of people lift and then they want to play tennis, or they want to play rec hockey, or they want to do CrossFit, or they want to go in a new competition. There's so many different new competitions like Super League. So I think that as the industry goes that way, there's more and more interest in how do I do a dynamic warm-up? How do I maybe prevent injury? Because most of the time, a lot of, you know, power lifters and Olympic lifters, most of the time, like their injuries are very much just a function of those lifts. Like they don't necessarily need to do a lot outside of what's functional for them, but the second they go to try play beach volleyball or do something different, now it's like new demands in the body. So these are really for people who have to move in a variety of areas in their sport, or for somebody who's lifted and trained in a certain way and want to kind of expand that and start to apply that strength. So if you're a power lifter type of a lifter and you're saying, hey, I'm pretty powerful, I want to apply this power in a new way to a new sport, you know, I think incorporating this kind of stuff is a really good idea.
And I like that, because I think it's one thing I want to really get out of this video with Andy and sharing this valuable content is I think bodybuilders, some of the biggest problems bodybuilders have is they just go in to lift weights and they become so, I'm going to say, dysfunctional with their lifts. That they get injured, you know, they tear a bicep, they tear a chest. I'm not saying that can't happen, but I think the way you're teaching right here can really, really minimize that, Andy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at the function of a muscle, an individual muscle, it really has several different types of muscle contractions. There's this concept of timing, there's a reflexogenic or proprioceptive action of the muscle. And so, you know, when you're in motion, you know, you have to coordinate all those neuromuscular demands with your nervous system, and there's so many different types of contractions, different thresholds, different positions. So, you know, when you're just doing concentric lifts or an isokinetic type of training, a lot of times you're only developing or conditioning one aspect of that muscle function. So even just from a neuromuscular, not even talking about the nervous system, just even look from a neuromuscular standpoint, you know, there's a real benefit to getting somebody in a position where it's a new biomechanical position where that muscle's under demand at end range. That's key. Not having strength at end range is a big issue for a lot of athletes.
Right.
And so now it's just going through range of motion, contracting muscles at the end of the range, right?
Got it.
And then the second thing is really trying to create some kind of dynamic stimulus to the muscle if your sport stimulus is going to be dynamic. So now by getting in motion, I'm creating a new type of contraction of the muscle. I'm actually contracting it in a slightly different way, and now I have to control my nervous system and build out the sequences of the muscle firing. Whereas in an isolated lift, you're not really having to worry about sequencing because it's really only one joint that's coming into play.
Makes sense.
Now we're going to go through a series of just some basic drills. You can try them. But these drills are drills that are working on movement-based range of motion. So the first one's just a little bit of hip circumduction. So we're just going to take a step and come around and pull. Step, come around, pull. So typically we're trying to work on neutral spine, neutral pelvis, the same thing as we're always trying to do. So what we want to do is make sure that this comes from hip motion. So we're trying to avoid that.
Okay, so avoid opening?
Yeah, so if I do this, I'm actually moving through my spine. So am I working spine range of motion at that point in time? You want to work through your hip, you're going to keep your hips straight, and then you're going to maintain your neutral spine. So again, the biggest mistakes we typically see are this. Right? So you're seeing motion through the spine. So stay tall and pull is really the goal of this lift. Yeah, you got it. Good. A good rule of thumb if you want a neutral spine is to look high with your gaze. If you look down, it's usually going to cause your head to follow. Okay. So I always think of if we want to create movement base, one of the main deficiencies is posterior chain activation.
Okay.
So if you think of pushing your head back against my hand.
Okay. So do the movement?
Yeah, push. So stay tall and push back and stay high with your gaze. Yeah, you got it. Good. Yeah, nice. Good, man. So basically, the difference between this and what we're doing on the ground, well, this is a circumduction exercise, but essentially now this hip that's in contact with the ground has to stabilize itself as this hip's in motion. So usually the deficiency comes in this hip. So the deficiency comes when that hip drops or collapses, and it has to accommodate the range. Right? The whole idea is to like find a common position that you want to move through. And just like a hurdler exercise, you're trying to create, demands at the hip and strengthen and create the coordination through that motion. Yeah, you got it. I like the catch and pull myself. I think you get a little bit of glute activation on the left side. It's just what I like personally. Yeah, you got it. Okay, awesome, man. Next one, we're going to work that lateral side a little bit more. So we're working this side. So now it's the same kind of thing. We're trying to come directly under the chin. And we're trying to avoid having to reach down. See what happened to my spine? Yeah. I really want to maintain my spine and stabilize it in a neutral position through the lift. So I'm really bringing my knee to me. I'm not going to my knee. See the difference? Okay, give that a shot. So this is going to be catching outside. Yes.
Like this?
Yes. Good. Yeah. Good. Let's try a few reps going this way, man. Yeah, good. Awesome. Nice.
You can get my core in there, Andy.
Yeah, for sure. So essentially, once you go on one leg, there's a whole host of muscle stabilizers that are doing their job, right? And so it's not a lot of taxation on those muscles, but we don't need a lot of load on those muscles because they're stabilizers, right? So we're just really trying to create some control. And so, most of the time to create range of motion, we have to accommodate that lack of range with our spine. So we're just practicing staying in this tall position, and I'm actually using my adductor to come across, create that position, and then I'm just creating the pull from there. So the next one I wanted to go through with this one is just a little drop under.
Yeah.
So we're just going to come down, come over, and then up. So it's a single leg drop. So some people have seen this with a bar exercise. I've seen it where people drop this way. I prefer to go down, over, and up. So you're going to drop this way, come over, and then come up, down.
Oh yeah, so you drop on this leg.
Yeah, so it's really a single leg exercise. So we're practicing, and this is obviously in hockey, we spend a lot of time transferring weight from one side to the other. So the goal is to create a single leg squat, shift, and then a single leg squat concentrically coming up the other way. Step over, and then up. Down, step over, and then up. Before you come up, come all the way over.
All the way over?
Yeah. Down, over, and up. Very good. You got it. Awesome.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay. All this way.
Yeah. down, over, and then up, and then hold it right there. So you see where your gaze is?
Oh yeah, it's down.
So when you come this way, you come across, you want to finish at the hip and maintain a really good tall head position. Okay, in order to do that, you want to have your eyes looking up if you can. Yeah. And up, finish, good. You can finish on 2 feet as well, Matt. Yeah. Good. That's interesting. Okay, good. And then one little thing on motor learning. Yeah. Some really cool stuff. There's a guy named Franz Bosch who does a lot of really cool stuff on motor learning, and I've read a lot of like really interesting things from people like Brett Bartholomew or Nick Winkleman on motor learning. There's a lot of cool stuff out there on coaching and how to learn a drill. Personally, with my own experience, what I find with athletes is I can tell when somebody's thinking the exercise. Okay. So they're trying to use, their frontal cortex to coordinate the movement, and that movement very often looks slow, choppy, and there's a lot of hesitation to it. So I think it's important to maybe think through it for a minute, but you got to let that go pretty quickly. I always encourage people to try and feel the movement, right? So for this one, for example, once you've kind of gone through your mind of what you're supposed to do, if you stay in your head a little bit, you'll kind of start to unfeel the movement. So what I recommend is just, try to go through it very fluidly and try to feel what the movement feels like instead of think about what the movement should look like, right?
You turn it because I was thinking too much.
Yeah.
It was funny because I'm trying to go like this and not like this. So it's like retraining my brain,
Well, the thing that's really interesting is most of the time when somebody looks down, they're thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, when your eyes are up, there's actually quite a bit of input into your cerebellum or into the part of your brain that feels movement.
Okay.
And so you actually want that. You want to have that feeling of like your eyes are up, you're feeling a movement. You don't want to fixate on a point when you're trying to learn a drill.
Gotcha. So more like smooth it.
Just feel it. Yes. Nice. Good. Yeah. Good. Try to relax the upper body a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, nice. Bring it back. Good. Keep the hands close to the body. Yeah, nice. Very good. Couple more. Relax. Okay, that's it, man. So tons of other drills, like there's a whole series of drills that I use, A-skips, different types of skipping kicks, motions, butt kicks, high knee drills. Those are more dynamic versions of the exact same thing. We don't necessarily do those to practice the technique of a running application, but we do those to essentially create a dynamic stimulus to the same type of positions that we're creating here. Gotcha. Neutral pelvis, neutral spine, center of pressure on the foot hits the ground at a certain time, maintaining that kind of neutral pelvis, neutral spine through dynamic articulation to the hip. So I think what we did here today is the most applicable. I think athletes that are doing a lot more speed work, acceleration, multi-directional training, there's another component, that maybe we can hit another day to focus on that group. But I think for the group of people who are most likely watching this, I think that's a ton of content for you, hopefully helpful in the warm-up.
That's huge. There you go, Andy O'Brien, guys. Went over all the warm-up stuff we're going to talk about for this phase of the program. Now we're going to jump into some upper body stuff. We're going to go over our pressing things, like a bench press, incline press next. And we're going to go over some, I believe, some rowing as well, Andy.
Yeah, sounds great.
So let's do it.
Awesome. Okay.